Hello, welcome to Rob, Ryan, Red, the Wrexham podcast brought to you in association with Red 10 People Development. On today's show, we will bring you news of Wrexham's latest summer signing. We've got guests to talk about the last four players to arrive at the Cacace. We've also got an exclusive Cop Stand update for you, and myself and Nath will also bring you what we think Wrexham's strongest lineup will look like in the Championship next season. All that and more on today's show.
Rob, Ryan, Red.
So, Nath, a sad week for Wrexham Football Club. Obviously, the passing of Joey Jones earlier in the week. We produced a special podcast tribute in memory of Joey. If you've not watched that or listened to it already, we implore you to do so. There's some fantastic tributes there from those who knew him the best. Wayne Phillips, Andy Morrell, Peter Moore of Liverpool fame, of course, Harry Ashfield, Wrexham's current youth team starlet as well, amongst many others who paid respects to Joey. So if you've not watched that or listened to it already, please do that. We tried to put as much effort into that as we could. And thank you to all the guests who joined us at such short notice. And Nath, away from that, it's still been a very busy week for Wrexham in regards to business at the football club. You know, it goes on. Wrexham start the Championship season very soon, and some very impressive signings as well have arrived at the Cacace. You're back as well. I mean, you've been on your travels again. Barcelona in midweek. Where are you jetting off to next?
Yeah, I hope nowhere. I just wanna sit here, get like a big bowl of crisps or something, some snacks, be unhealthy and watch a show. That's all I want to do. Also, I'm badly in need of show recommendations. I'm sure you lot have all watched a lot more than me, so give me some shows because I haven't honestly since I got back from Australia. I don't think I've watched any TV in any form, which is saying that out loud seems like a big first world problem. But yeah, Barcelona after Slovakia, London, Australia. I'm ready for a long lie down.
And, you know, you'll be watching Wrexham put on a show soon. Southampton away is very quickly approaching. Groningen away, that one is a no-go for Wrexham fans. That is a police issue. I was pricing up flights. I was looking at ways to go there and watch that friendly. Nathan Salt's put his finger up.
Well, did you see there was a report in the Netherlands that the police spokesperson came out and said it was absolutely nothing to do with us. We had no consultation whatsoever. And they said it's all on the clubs. They said Groningen and Wrexham decided. Groningen and Wrexham say it was the local authority. They wouldn't allow it. So, hey, somebody is lying somewhere. But I would say that it sold out in very quick time. And it seems like the home fans are annoyed that there's no away fans. The away fans are annoyed there's no away fans. Blackburn are going over as well. They're not allowed any away fans. Just seems like a missed opportunity all round.
I'd be staggered if a few stray Wrexham fans aren't there, though. But hey, we'll keep their identities anonymous on this podcast. Nath, like we said, it's been a busy week in terms of transfers. We'll start with the latest one. Lewis O'Brien has signed from Nottingham Forest. Unclosed fee, 3-year deal. This feels like the statement signing we've all been waiting for. The tour felt a little lackluster. I think it slightly exposed how short we were, but also good players take a while to sign. We've seen that every summer so far, but you often leave your best buys to the end. And Lewis O'Brien, wow, that is arguably the most impressive signing of the takeover.
Well, I got a message, a friend of the podcast, Sutty, who implied that good things come to those who wait, because I was getting very impatient on the tour. And like you say, maybe the tour did expose the shortcomings when we were losing to, 19-year-old, under 19 teams in the A-League. But what a week. Has this been the most impressive window yet? I mean, you could say that every time. I think Lewis O'Brien, technically as a footballer, is the best signing that's been made in the Robin Ryan era. 17 appearances for Nottingham Forest, 13 of those in the Premier League. He is bona fide one of the best midfielders in the Championship. I think even rival fans can accept that, okay, Wrexham are serious here. Wrexham, look, this doesn't mean we're doing our Championship predictions very soon. This doesn't mean Wrexham are going to be second or third or fourth, whatever. But it is a sign that Wrexham are going for it. You are talking big wages. You are talking a fee that, with all the add-ons and everything, will come to about, I'd say it's still going to be in the 5 million region. And quickly, Rich, we did get a note from another friend of the pod, Mox, who said, what do add-ons mean? So we often will talk about a deal, including add-ons. Going to get onto one later, Liberato Cacace add-ons, to get up to 4 million. Obviously, they differ deal to deal, but I guess if you could just give a general summation of what is an add-on, how do they get triggered, what does it mean, basically?
Yes, they differentiate a lot depending on the level of that you're playing at. If you're in a lower division, it's typically once a player's made X amount of appearances, you get another bulk. If they win a PFA award or something, you can get another trigger there. Or if the team gets promoted, etc., they can be your annual sort of triggers. At the very top level, there's a lot of them that are viewed as unachievable. So when you see lots of Premier League deals and it's like the package could be worth this astronomical amount, what's the actual base fee? That's the guaranteed transfer figure. Some of those will again be appearance fees. Some of them will be recognition at international level, individual awards, and in the case of a few notable ones, it'll be if they win the Ballon d'Or or if they win the Champions League, they get this sort of money. I'm guessing Lewis O'Brien doesn't have a Ballon d'Or
I was
add-on
about to say,
clause in his deal right now.
Lewis O'Brien got a Ballon d'Or winner. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look. What I will say is Lewis O'Brien is an incredibly exciting signing. It looked like for one time it was going to happen, and then I think it was well documented that personal terms were an issue. It was on £35,000 a week at Nottingham Forest, something in that ballpark. Big money. Don't get me wrong, big money, but Wrexham are going to need to speculate to accumulate, as they have done at every level. Money is important. You get where you want to get to by spending money and flexing financial muscle, which I still need to put this out. I haven't done yet, but remember we had that great chap on, I forget his name now, who came on and gave an inside look on Wrexham's finances and kind of why Wrexham didn't necessarily need to worry too much about financial fair play and championship profit and sustainability rules. And I think you might have said on that, Rich, that okay, Wrexham could lose 40 million and still comply the season. And it's over a 3-year period. They won't want to spend all that at once. Maybe they want to spend a fair chunk of it though, because they are going for it. And in Lewis O'Brien, I think that's a kind of, I think we'll make another one. I think we'll make that striker that I think is like wholly bleep. Like Wrexham are serious, but Lewis O'Brien is a good one to say to the rest of the championship, let's stop this notion of Wrexham being in any sort of relegation battle. I know that's a ball hasn't been kicked, but he's a proper player. He's a top half championship player, and I think he'll show that from the first game.
Yeah, as our next guest will say, Tom Coleman, there's even some who believe he could be a lower-end Premier League player right now. So this is the calibre of player by, like you said, arguably one of the best midfielders in the Championship, someone who's of a younger age profile as well. And I also think, importantly, Nathan, someone who has turned down Swansea City to join Wrexham. What does that tell you about the power shift in Wales? I know this season coming up, there might be a lot of discussion about who the biggest team in Wales is. You might have Snoop Dogg, you might have Luka Modric, but we've got Robin Ryan, and right now we've got players turning them down to sign for us. So without further ado, here's Tom Coleman, a Swansea City reporter for Wales Online, and here is what he had to say about his move to the Kaivas. So, Tom, Lewis O'Brien, what can Wrexham potentially expect from him as a midfielder?
Look, I think there's many down here who would view him as one of the more complete central midfielders that's possible to get in the Championship. There's plenty down here who would probably be of the opinion that Lewis O'Brien could potentially even do a job in the lower ends of the Premier League. Obviously, he's coming into Wrexham from Nottingham Forest. It's been obvious for some time that he's not really been in the long-term picture at Nottingham Forest, and I think there was some hope down here that Swansea might be able to snag him again after what was a really, really successful 6-month loan spell. he came in at a bit of a difficult time, it has to be said. I think Swansea, there was a bit of a shockwave here when Matt Grimes left to go to Coventry. Losing your captain midway through the season is never ideal, and it caused a pretty big shift in Swansea's transfer plans. And Lewis was very quickly identified as the man to hopefully potentially fill that void. And they really did break the bank to get him here, and I think that says a lot about how highly rated he is, considering it was, like I said, only a 6-month loan spell. But I think in terms of what he offers, to me, I view him as a sort of traditional box-to-box number 8, an all-action midfielder that can do a bit of everything. He's got a lovely creative streak in him. He can pick out a pass, bring others into play, links up well with the front three, and but he's also not afraid to muck in defensively. And he's mops up wonderfully well on the base of midfield, and he can play as a 6, can play as an 8. I think he's probably even got the skill set to play as a 10. He really does bring a lot to the table, and I think there's probably a little bit of disappointment that Swansea couldn't get a deal done themselves. But I think with the finances involved, it was always going to be a tricky one to do.
I guess I was going to ask you that. Was there any realistic hope from fans, or was it more sort of wishful thinking that they would be able to get him permanently this summer themselves?
I think initially at the beginning of the summer, I think there was I'd probably call it optimism that Swansea could perhaps go back in for it. I mean, Lewis himself, from it's my understanding, thoroughly enjoyed his time here. Really, really loved working under Alan Sheehan, and I think had Swansea managed to put the right package together, I think he probably would have considered it. I think the other factor here is it's my understanding as well that he wanted potentially to return up north due to family reasons. So I think that probably came into it as well. But I think ultimately it was the finances that were really quickly identified as the main stumbling block to not just Swansea, because I think there were a lot of teams in the Championship that I think took a look at Lewis O'Brien, and but to take a player of that quality on a permanent deal was always going to be a pricey one to do. And I think the fact that Swansea moved for the likes of Ethan Galbraith, for example, was probably an indication in hindsight that perhaps they'd moved on from Lewis. But it's to see him sign on for another club, particularly another Welsh club, probably won't go down particularly well with a lot of Swans fans. But I don't think it comes as a massive shock, if I'm honest.
I guess as well, moving from an external point of view, I mean, Swansea have been making waves this summer themselves with Luka Modric, Snoop Dogg, of course, the kit reveal that was very Wrexham orientated. If you can't beat them, join them. What is the sort of ownership looking like at Swansea at the moment? How much money do they have? Because, like I said, it's really spectacular to look at from a headline point of view and from the celebrity sort of status of Swansea now. But like you said, the fact they can't maybe match Wrexham's muscle with this deal in particular, is that an indication that it's more the faces that are behind the business rather than the money at the moment?
Yeah, I think to a certain extent that's true. I mean, obviously Luka Modric and Snoop Dogg are going to be putting money in, but it's not going to be the sort of money that's going to suddenly give Swansea the ability to go out and sign a 30-goal a season striker, for example. I think the main motivations behind those two deals in particular, it's kind of been more focused on strengthening Swansea's commercial side of operations. So, getting more eyes on Swansea City as a brand, because, and I think we're going to see an awful lot more of this. And I don't think it's a coincidence that we've already seen a fair amount of it in the EFL. And obviously, you mentioned Wrexham, perhaps the big example there. But and obviously Birmingham City with the likes of Tom Brady, and that's obviously another one. But I think in the EFL specifically, a lot of clubs in the EFL are looking at ways that they can expand commercial operations. That's quite difficult to do domestically. It's quite difficult to bring new fans on board domestically as an EFL club, which is why I think so many are viewing markets like North America, for example, as a perfect chance and a perfect opportunity to enjoy more commercial opportunities. That in a nutshell, I think, is kind of the motivation behind particularly the Snoop Dogg deal. I think with Luka Modric, it is a little bit different because I think there is a footballing benefit to it. So it's my understanding, for example, that Luka Modric has spoken to prospective signings, for example. And look, if you're umming and ahhing about who to sign for, and the likes of Luka Modric pops up on a Zoom call for you and persuades you to sign, that's going to have an impact, isn't it? In fact, I think Zidane and Nusa actually said in the Swedish press shortly before he signed that he's spoken to Luka. So, there are some real practical benefits to stuff like this as well. But it's all about trying to strengthen the commercial side of things, which ultimately allows clubs like Swansea to better navigate things like profit and sustainability rules, and hopefully that translates to ultimately buying better players and having a better squad, and ultimately being able to challenge.
I guess, again, when we, as Wrexham fans, look at the table, we saw Swansea as one of those teams where they could finish similarly as us, maybe anywhere from just outside the playoffs, maybe a bit above the relegation. So it's one of those unknown quantities. The business looks really interesting. Some, like I said, some good League One players, and Santos and Galbraith joining there, and some star quality as well. Obviously losing some key players as well. What would you say is the target at this stage of the summer for Swansea for next season?
Well, that's a really difficult question to answer, to be honest. Look, I think expectations for the season are perhaps being kept in check. Having said that, I think there's been a massive amount of optimism that I've not seen really since the club were in the Premier League. And, having the Modric deals and Snoop Dogg and all that has certainly helped. But a flurry of early activity in the transfer window is also well. And, I think, Swansea they've had a few difficult transfer windows. I think it's fair to say, and there's real hope now that under the new ownership group, and particularly the new director of football, Richard Montague, who did a fantastic job at the county. His whole modus operandi was to find players that are perhaps undervalued, perhaps going under the radar of other clubs, and snapping them up for bargain deals, and then I guess in the case of Swansea, perhaps looking at selling them on for bigger fees. But ultimately, that I think, when that's been put to Swansea, the thing that's always come back to me is like they still want to be competitive as well. So you've got to try and have that sustainability and balance that with having a competitive football team as well. So with all that in mind, I mean, they weren't a million miles away from the playoffs last season, but I still think they definitely don't have enough for me. I think there's a strong starting 11 there, but the main concern I have, there's two big concerns I've got really. One is there's a real lack of strength and depth, despite that early flurry of activity. There's still plenty more they need to do. I still think they need another fullback. Still think they need another centre back. There's questions over the goalkeeping position because obviously there's only two keepers now, and there's still questions over Andy Fisher's future. But also, you look at the team, and you do wonder where the goals are going to come from. Jan Verbotnik, we saw flashes of his capabilities last season, but he hasn't quite hit the heights that I think many would have hoped for. Liam Cullen, to be fair, has done quite well, but I don't think I still don't think he's an out and out number 9. I think he'd probably be the first to admit that. I think he's much better in the sort of the 10 position. So an out and out striker for me is definitely something that they need to look at. And I think you can make the case almost all over the pitch for strengthening positions. But like I said, that opening first 11, to me, I think is good enough to compete with most teams in the Championship. But I do fear that if any kind of playoff charge or anything like that could ultimately fall away due to, like I said, that lack of options behind that opening first 11.
Like I said, the carrot's there as well for Wrexham and Swansea now to be unanimously the best team in Wales. That is an incentive. As Lee Trundle said, it's good to have the two biggest Welsh clubs in the same league together next season. And I just wanted to ask finally, sort of, Tom, from a Wrexham point of view, what do you think the biggest difference will be from League One to the Championship? Because right now, again, I think like most Wrexham fans, you start the day off, you maybe think, we'll be lucky to survive next season. Then Windass coming in, O'Brien, you start to dream maybe you can have a mid-table team. And as you know, covering the Championship yourself, 3 or 4 wins towards the back of the season, you could be flirting with the playoffs. If you get into the playoffs, who knows what can happen? It does feel really open next season. The division. There's a few standout teams, maybe not across the park. But from a Wrexham point of view, what would your words of advice, maybe words of warning be ahead of a season in the chaotic Championship?
I think the main thing I would say from Wrexham is to maybe not get too carried away in terms of expectations, because I think on the whole, to come up from League One and even survive in the Championship is normally a huge ask. I think we'll probably will see an exception to that, not just with Wrexham, but with Birmingham City as well. I think I expect both of them to do reasonably well next season. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of them was at least part of the conversation for top 6 at some point. I think the difficulty I think Wrexham are going to have is that they are ultimately going to be competing with teams who have still got Premier League money, and can, Wrexham can still overtake the likes of, a Swansea City, for example. They can overtake quite a few teams in the Championship in terms of financial muscle. But once you start looking at that top 8, top 6, top 4, definitely top 2, the financial gap is much, much bigger, and bridging that, I think, is going to be a really, really big challenge for them. Because, and Wrexham fans won't thank me for saying it, but let's be honest, a huge part of their success has been the fact that they've been able to outspend a lot of their rivals, and it's going to be much more difficult to do that in the Championship. I think it will be, obviously, Lewis O'Brien, I think, is a very, very shrewd bit of business for them, but it does kind of go a little bit against, I would argue, what Wrexham's transfer model has been in the past few seasons, which has been to find players who could realistically still play in the division above, who are perhaps on their way down in terms of their careers, and convince them to come down to the division and be part of the project. Lewis O'Brien, he's 25, 26. I think, he's not a player who's on the way down. If anything, he's on the way up. So that does represent to me a slight change of tact in terms of transfer approach, which I think, in fairness, is what they're going to need to do. Because if you to sign an aging Premier League star, for example, let's just use, I'm not saying he's going to join Wrexham, but let's just use Jamie Vardy as an example. The amount of money that you're going to need to convince, say, a Jamie Vardy to come down and play for Wrexham, that's a lot harder to do than if you're in League One trying to get a Championship player down, if you know what I mean. So, these are all the challenges. But, I think, in fairness to Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, they've appointed people in the right places who seem to really know what they're doing. I think the good thing about them as owners is that they recognise their own limitations in terms of knowledge, their own gaps in knowledge, which I think is refreshing to see, because so often owners seem to think that seem to fancy themselves as being hands-on and knowing what's best for a football club, even if they don't happen to know anything really about football. But no, I know there probably will be a bit of rivalry between Swansea and Wrexham next season, but I've got to say I've personally been very, very impressed with the way Wrexham have gone about things. I think they've built the project in the right way, and I'm really, really interested to see how they're going to fare in the Championship. But I think a mid-table finish, perhaps even a sort of lower mid-table finish, I think that would be that to me would represent a good season, and anything above that is a massive bonus for me.
Rich, I'm just excited. Every time I see a picture, Lewis O'Brien in a Wrexham shirt, I am like, this is the business. That's what I tweeted. Wrexham mean business. And I think you also put out a tweet that said, Josh Windass, who we're going to get onto next, and Lewis O'Brien, they are needle movers, in my opinion. I think one of the most interesting things is the higher up the leagues you go, typically you can't rip up the entire team. So when Wrexham were pre-takeover in the National League, everyone's on a 1-year deal. You just rip up the team every year. Probably be like, we'll try and keep you, but can't really afford because you've done well. We're just going to get 10 new players. And that honestly was the existence, wasn't it, Rich? Just 10 new players, 9 new players, 11 players, 14 new players, whatever it was. Typically, as you go up, that is hard to do because everyone's on a 3-year deal or 4-year deal or 2-year and an option. But I have to say, Wrexham have gone bold. There was, from speaking to people in and around certain deals, Wrexham have been looking at 8 or 9. That's been their aim. 8 or 9 signings. We're up to 6 now, I think, with Lewis O'Brien. It's the 6th one. So they're well on the way. And you would argue that 99% of these that are coming in are starters. We can debate Judge Thomason a little bit later when you spoke to the Trotter Chatter lads for Bolton. But Lewis O'Brien come in on the money, bona fide starter. He'll be a nailed on starter. And spoiler alert for the team I'm going to give later, Lewis O'Brien will be in that team for the championship. And another player who will be in my team, Josh Windass, who, Rich, is going to ruffle a few feathers, no doubt about it. He's basically James McLean 2.0. So those two going at it in training if they're not on the same team in training, that's going to be chaos. If they are on the same team in training, that is also going to be chaos. Josh Windass, I have to say, as exciting as Lewis O'Brien is, I was buzzing to get Josh Windass. I think that's such a good signing.
Yeah, again, when you talk about the overall package for a player this summer, I think that's the sign of the summer, given he's a free agent. I really do. I think Josh Windass is an excellent addition. He's in that mould of player that Parky likes. I know some fans and rival fans will be saying, oh yeah, but he's a bit temperamental. He misses some easy chances, scores worldies. But hey, he's the type of player we need in that team. Someone who's got that creativity, can play either off the striker, be that Sam Smith, be that a certain Welsh international who wears a headband sometimes. Bandage around his head. Or he can play as the number 10 again. And he probably is that player we've been crying out for I'm not going to say for 12 months. It's been longer than that. We've always wanted that extra attack midfield player. I just think he's a brilliant, brilliant addition, especially picking him up as a free agent, given what happened at Sheffield Wednesday. Obviously commiserations to them. It's not a nice circumstance to be getting a player because, our thoughts really are with the Wednesday fans on that. We've seen how troubled our club's been in the past financially. But I just think he's not only a very talented player who's proven at a level we're going to, he's also just got all those Parky traits that he loves. And yeah, he's going to work hard. And that's what's, I think, struck me the most about the signings this summer. They are all hard workers. Every single one of them has got to put an absolute shift in. And that is what we need in the Championship. If we're going to make up that differential between us and the top teams, yes, they might have better players and they might have more money than us, but do they have more heart than us? And I don't think they will. I think we're going to work harder than any team next season. And that's why I'm feeling more confident than ever. And I think Josh Windass, he's a brilliant, brilliant signing.
We need goals. We needed goals big time. And he gives you that from midfield, whether he plays on the left of a 3 or ideally he plays a number 10. Wrexham don't accommodate number 10s really. Whatever you want to call whatever Jay Rodriguez was, shadow striker. It's not perfect fit-wise for Josh Windass, but he's a bona fide Championship player. And on a free, that his agent was getting a call from every team in the Championship going, what's it going to take? And he's gone, I'm going to Wrexham. That's where I'm going. And I know that they really pushed for Josh Windass. They got him. Like I say, goals to midfield. And I'm sure that the guys over at the Wednesday week did not want me sliding in their DM saying, tell us about this player we've managed to get off you for nothing because you've cancelled the contract and you've got a million other worries to deal with. But yeah, here is the Josh Windass insight on why he's a big game player and why he might even celebrate against Sheffield Wednesday in those early games. So yeah, here's the Wednesday week giving us the lowdown on our new signing. Right, so another one of the players we want to get into. So it's a busy week. Wrexham signed a lot of players. I was in Australia. We were waiting for more players, and we've had, 3 at once now? Might even be more by the time this podcast is out. We don't know. It's Tuesday when we're speaking. Josh Windass, there's a lot to get into here, but he has left Sheffield Wednesday, mutual decision to tear up the contract. Dan, who is host of the Wednesday week, will be able to set us straight on all these things. But he's left Sheffield Wednesday. We know that much. He's come to Wrexham on a 3-year contract. Depending on who you ask, a number 10, second striker. Wrexham obviously played a 3-5-1-1. I guess before we get into the nuts and bolts, Dan, thanks for coming on firstly. But secondly, Josh Windass, what player are Wrexham getting?
Purely on a football-based decision, is that where you want to go for that?
From a football point of view, what kind of talent, what kind of level of player are we getting here?
Okay, Josh Windass is on his day, a very lethal player. There is an element where sometimes he can go missing during games, but then he can subvert that by coming out with a moment of magic. You know, a lot of people saw the big long range goal he scored against Derby County last year. He scored the winner in the 120th plus 3 minutes of the playoff final when we got out of League One. So in there is a player who can produce on the big moments. When it comes to supporting and driving forward in that, what you trendy kids now call the number 10 role. We used to call it CAM or AMC. He likes coming in from one of the wings rather than playing directly behind a striker. He will never profess to be an out-and-out striker. He spent the last year playing behind Michael Smith, or pushed out to the right a little bit, or the left, and cutting inside on the edge of the 18. So, is there some talent there? Absolutely, there really is. Is there going to be days where you're thinking, who the hell have we signed here? Yeah, there are as well. But if that was this is the championship, right? If they weren't having those parts of their game, they wouldn't be playing championship. And like Josh said, I think he said about Ollie Palmer on the offside on the offside podcast. If I was playing for Man City and scoring 20 goals, I'd be playing for Man City.
Yeah, that's what he said. Ollie Palmer said he could score something like 20 goals or 10 goals for Man City. And yeah, Josh Windass, if you haven't seen that clip, Josh Windass says, if I could score 20 goals for Man City, I'd be playing for Man City, which is probably a fair comment. I guess, Wrexham are having a big overhaul of their squad. We are looking at potentially by the end of the window, it might be 7, 8, 9 new faces, all of which you would imagine are coming in at a starting calibre. So clearly the staff see a big need to improve for the championship. And they're getting players as such. Before we maybe get onto some reservations, Josh Windass, I think you would say that a bona fide champion, is a player that would have had a lot of championship interest. I think we can both agree on that.
Absolutely. Had it not been for the shambles that's going on at our club right now, we'd still have 5 very good players that have all now left out the door, because essentially we've just not been paying them. And Josh is one of those. We didn't pay him for 2 or 3 months, and you've got the ability to hand in your notice. And Josh at this point would have got a lot of attention from other championship clubs. He's very much a championship player at the very minimum. Scored a lot of goals in League One when we went down the few years ago. And refused to celebrate. I think he had a deal with his dad. He's not going to celebrate if he scores in League One because it's not hard enough for him. And it's nice to have that. It's nice to have that confidence in yourself. And he does back himself. And he is our highest scorer since the turn of the millennium that the club's ever seen, with 53 goals. So, he is that level.
From the cat, look, we've had players, Ollie Palmer, who, when we've spoke to opposition podcasts, despised him or thought he was not the type of character you'd want in a dressing room, has done brilliantly for us, maybe has taken us as far as he can, and he might not be part of the journey going forward, probably unlikely to be. James McLean, another, needs no introduction. Everyone has an opinion on James McLean. I get the feeling from the outside that Josh Windass is sort of in that group where everyone has an opinion because he is very confident. What do you make of him as a character? Is he somebody that, if he's against you, he's an absolute nightmare, you don't like him, but if he's for you, he's someone you can really root for? Or is there a bit of friction even when he's with you? I don't know how you would see that.
It's a good question, because in the kind of way like you have, I don't know, like when Nottingham Forest had Billy Davis, it was like, we don't like him, but he's ours, and like he's all right when he's yours. That type of player. But I don't think he's that divisive. There's an element of Josh backs himself, right? He believes in his own ability, knows where he stands in football, and knows where his where his limit and where his bottom end is. You know, I think he's a well-established Championship player, and I think he's got the talent and the statistics to back it up. Is he the type of player that will fit in at Wrexham? Absolutely, yes, he is. And then you've got players there like Stephen Fletcher and, like you said, James McLean, who can be quite maligned in terms of their attitude and their belief in what they partake in off the pitch. Josh is wonderful at winding everybody up on the socials. Absolutely great. A lot of cryptic Instagram posts, and given that, like I say, the aforementioned state of our club, given the way it's gone the last few weeks. Every post that Josh has done, we've had a lot of online sleuths trying to pick apart what he meant and what he's doing and where he's going. For example, a great example is there was this huge rumor flying around that he's going to go and sign for a club in the States. He's going to move to the States. He's married an American girl. He's clearly going to go to the States. And then when he went on holiday to the States, he just put a little picture up, just like of a road sign, clearly in America, and everybody lost their mind. You know what I mean? So that type of thing, he's very good at that. But he does back himself, and rightly so. You know what I mean? He's at the level he is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, look, I've always admired him as a player, and you don't get linked to, was it Flamengo? I think it was. I think he was
Santos.
Santos, there you go, not Flamengo. Santos, his old manager, I think from Rangers, went there. Pedro Cacace or something, and was interested in him. That was obviously got a big idea, big thing. But at the very, very root of it, I think Wrexham are getting a good player. The question mark I have is, we're getting this good player for free. And I think it's important. Look, we'll speak before we're playing in those first few games, Wrexham Sheffield Wednesday, so we'll be able to get into what your squad looks like, what ours looks like, more of a match preview then. But it'd be remiss of me now not to ask you about everything that's gone on, to the point where you have lost Josh Windass for free. And you have lost Michael Smith, who we tried 3 times to get, and we couldn't negotiate with Chansiri, who can, let's be honest. And he's now gone to Preston North End. We've been linked to Stuart Armstrong and Barry Bannon, and you've got all these things. And I just think maybe some people aren't aware of just how bad it is right now at Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, it's shambolic. We've had 10 years of mismanagement since Chansiri came in 10 years ago. We went for it those first couple of years. We got within 90 minutes of the playoff final in his first within 90 minutes within the Premier League in the playoff final, and then the following year we got the playoffs. And as soon as Fernando Forestieri missed a penalty in that following season, it's just been a downward spiral. We've now got the ground is now waiting for a safety certificate that I just don't think they're going to get, which means that's 6,000 season ticket holders are going to have to be relocated for a good couple of months minimum, because the stadium is literally falling apart. It's corroded, and there was an audit done on the stadium, and it's worse than you could ever expect. Like, it's genuinely difficult to look at. We haven't paid players. We haven't paid 4 players. We owe Hull City, who are in their own financial trouble. We owe Hull City for Malik Wilkes, who we then got and then shipped out to Rotherham because he was trash. And then Akin for Maywo, who started out trash, turned out into be a good player. And then we're going to send him to Hull, which is clearly something to do with that deal. We've got a mass exodus of our best players, losing Anthony Masaba to Samsung Sport, losing Jedi Gassama, who was worth a few quid, who is going to be a world beater up in Scotland, and only getting £2.2 million for him. And then, like you said, losing Smudge and losing Windass on free transfers is shambolic. So by the time we play you in the league, which is about our 3rd or 4th game of the season, we're just going to be, a pitch full of kids, and there's nothing any of us can do about it, because it's just all one man at the top. There's no board of directors. There's no shares. Nothing. It's just one man who has gambled and lost and has continued to lose, but won't admit where he's gone wrong. Our manager wants to leave. Our captain hasn't signed a new contract because we haven't offered him one of any repute. So he's still turning up for training and still doing these local school appearances and community projects and things like that. But he's not actually signed on at the club right now. And this is Barry Bannon, who's been there for a decade. It's shambolic. what happened at Morecambe about 18 months ago is happening to us right now. And Whittingham's still in charge at Morecambe when we're recording this right now. So we're in for a tumultuous couple of years, at least, unless somebody with more money than sense comes in and snaps us up. Because, we are one of those sleeping giants. But then again, when we got took over, we were one of the first of the sleeping giants, and then 10 years later, we're now one of the last of the sleeping giants because we're still asleep, and everybody else has sailed up the leagues, and we're still sat here with our massive fan base, just whinging and howling at the moon because we can't do anything about it.
So look, I would urge you, just because we're on a tight sort of time constraint, I would urge you to go listen to the Wednesday week. Go and seek out Sheffield Wednesday content. I know a lot of people here will listen purely for Wrexham. They follow Wrexham. But it is important that, you realise that Wrexham have had their own struggles over the years. So if anyone can understand the difficulty of having an unscrupulous owner, then Wrexham and many other clubs will. So I would urge you to go check out the Wednesday week. And lastly, I don't want to be too frivolous here because that is very serious. And I think when we get you back on, or when I come onto yours, or vice versa, we'll be able to unpack it a little bit more.
Absolutely.
But I guess to be slightly frivolous, unfortunately, is Josh Windass going to celebrate? Do you think if he scores against Sheffield Wednesday? What do you think?
I think he would absolutely love celebrating. I think he's the type of player that he'll do the badge kiss. He'll take there was one bit when he took the shirt off and laid it out like a doormat. Honestly, he'll give it the full beans on toast.
So Rich, it made me laugh there that they're saying that he will celebrate and he will give it the big and he will kiss the badge. He will knee slide in front of the away end. One of those players, I said it in that chat, probably a bit like James McLean, where if they're yours, cult hero. If they're not, they are the type of player that you absolutely loathe. And I think players like McLean, players like Windass thrive off that.
Yeah, again, as well, I think quite similar to Mullen in that sense. Do you know what I mean? He just absolutely hated by all our other fans because he's very good and he knows how to enjoy himself. He relishes that. He plays like a proper fan on the pitch. He does what we want to do: kiss the badge, celebrate in front of the away end, give it the big one, and back it up with performances as well. So, yeah, I think as well, Nath, that you touched upon there is not only is it these players who come in with the characteristics, the actual quality you need, but again, it is just the personality in that dressing room. It's going to be, very difficult for Parky to manage at times because you've got a lot of personalities now who feel they should be playing every single week. But that's also good. The competition for places next season is ridiculous because the players who are now on the periphery are the ones who have been part of the journey. And I know there's no sentimentality, but they will feel as privileged as anyone else to play. The other interesting dynamic is it was Josh Windass who inadvertently, I suppose, called Ollie Palmer delusional when Ollie Palmer said that most lower league strikers could score 20 goals a season for Man City due to the amount of chances that Man City create. Ollie Palmer did say, look, I'm not talking about myself in this. I'm just saying most lower league strikers could score 20 goals, specifically in the Man City team a few years ago that was creating 30, 40 chances a game. He said, specifically that happened. Josh Windass went on a podcast, called Ollie Palmer delusional and said, if you could score 20 goals for Man City, you'd be playing for Man City. So yeah, interested to see how that one gets discussed in training. I'm sure Ollie will get a few jibes, but I understand the context of what he's saying to a degree. I think he got a little bit carried away, but hey, if one of them scores 20 goals for Wrexham next season, I don't care.
Well, let's go to a quick break because we've got two players down. Both of those are in my sort of Wrexham 11 for the season, but we've got a good cop update and two more players. So yeah, we'll go to a quick break.
So, Nath, you promised an update on the Cop stand as well. So, yeah, let's give our loyal listeners and viewers on YouTube one to enjoy. And again, this is our weekly reminder that if you're not already subscribed, do click that button below, whichever podcast platform you're following us on, for all the latest Wrexham news and opinion from ourselves. And the news is, Nath, that when Wrexham submitted their initial planning application for the new Cop stand, it was initially a one-tier design with the option to have a second tier. So the initial plan was for a 5,500 stand, which had a mixture of seated and mixed unsafe standing seats. And then eventually in the long term to build the second tier, which would add another 2,000 seats on top, which would require different planning application for that to go through. So it's understood that Wrexham are seriously contemplating going ahead with the full proposal now, so that by the time the COP opens, it will be the two-tiered structure of 7,500 capacity rather than the initially agreed 5,500 capacity that's already been approved. So planning process and applications all approved for a 5,500 COP stand. Wrexham are contemplating going ahead with the second tier now, so it's just one rebuild and it's just there. It opens hopefully the start of next season as a 7,500 stand, a bottom tier of 5,500 and a top tier of an additional 2,000 fans, and that would be some sight, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we've had it on with very good authority, so I'm a believer in that news and that intel. And to be honest, it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? It does, because you think all the hassle, and all the kind of difficulty that will come with not having that stand this season, minus 3,000 tickets for people, and it's going to be tough. Home games in the Championship are going to be massively oversubscribed. There's moving the dugouts and all these things going on. A new pitch has been seeded, and there's a lot of things going on, and we're all clamoring for the club to make more signings as they do all this as well. So there is a lot to juggle. I just think building the COP is a massive undertaking. So why not just have to do a lot of the legwork one time, so that when it opens, it's open, and that stand done for a very long time. It's not a case of, and also we'll get onto later how I think this window is affecting Wrexham's future. But in the very near future, you might already have outgrown a 5.5. So I think this is just sensible planning, right? Like, they probably thought 5.5, we're in League One, trying to get into the Championship. We're already in the Championship, and they're looking another step up, aren't they? So I don't know about you, Rich, but I think, yeah, definitely the right call if they push ahead. They just need to get that application in, because you and me both know that when it comes to it, if phosphates or another one of these pH words comes up, it just drags it out by another 6 months.
Yeah, and again, this is maybe the ambition of the club. So if it doesn't materialise, it's not something to hold against them. But it obviously makes sense to, like you say, accelerate these plans while you can. And by the time the COP stands opened, Wrexham could be a Premier League club. Like, that's a fact. We could be a League One club. We could be a Premier League club. So very exciting. Like I said, it makes a lot of sense, and it'll be interesting then once the COP is finally opened to see which stand they move on to next, what the next plan for the Kairos is, and it's all part of this bigger picture. And again, Nath, I suppose another element to say here is you're handing out 3-year deals to new signings. You've got this COP stand and the wider stadium project. Rob and Ryan aren't going anywhere, are they?
I thought they were meant to get bored by now, though. Was that not?
They were definitely bored after 12 months, I think.
Yeah, that was the idea, I thought, but seemingly not. Seemingly it's not as boring as people thought owning Wrexham Football Club would be. It's just fun, isn't it? Because predicting things for Wrexham now is near enough impossible. Some of the names we've been given, Rich, privately, for strikers in particular, who, last season played in the Champions League. I mean, it's unheard of, isn't it, really, when you think about just the names being thrown around, and a 7,500 seater COP. We've just been to Australia and we sold out all our merch over there. They basically underbought for that trip, getting over 100,000 people watching them. And now we even had the thing talking about whether they could end up going to Asia, and this like Wrexham takeover and the hate watch and the hate train that is following us is getting more and more carriages as we go up the leagues, and people still bitter about us in League Two and still bitter about us in League One, and they will be bitter about us in the Championship, and some in the Prem desperately don't want Wrexham to get up. So I thought that COP update was really insightful. Other little bits of news, I would say that I spoke to Elliot Lee. I've already shared this on social media, but I spoke to Elliot Lee. There is a fake profile going around from him. And this is a big bugbear of mine in the day job. I know that lots of Man United youngsters have fake profiles made about them and pretending to be them. and they always reach out to fans. And I just hate seeing fans duped, thinking they're talking to Elliot Lee, thinking they've been followed by Elliot Lee, and all they do is just take content off Instagrams and just post it pretending. So yeah, I've had that confirmed. That TikTok Elliot Lee account is fake, and who knows? I've put it on blast. It may be down by the time this podcast is out. And also, Rich, a couple of people were asking about the house plant. So if you'll forgive me, anyone listening, I'm just going to show people that are watching the state of the plant while Rich figures out if there's any more news of the week, I guess.
Yeah, no, I've been looking to that. I sent a link on one of our many WhatsApp groups looking at the revenue sales or the merchandise commercial growth of the club, which I can't find right now, which doesn't make for a very good segue, as anyone on YouTube will see Nathan Salt has just unleashed his plant on the screen. If you're listening to this as a podcast format, this is very, very bad audio content. But
then they will go to YouTube to see it. Basically, this was all full of leaves, and a lot of them, most have fallen off. But if anyone knows what this plant is, for one, I don't know what the plant is. Someone watching will know what the hell that plant is. And secondly, how much do I need to water it? Because I want to bring it back to life, if that is at all possible. But this isn't a gardening show. I'm going to put my plant back, and we've got 2 more players to get to, Rich.
I would say to Nave now, though, there is actually an app called Picture This, which I use a lot around the house, where you can take pictures of any plant and it will tell you what condition your plant is in and the care routine for it, basically. All of mine are very ill by all accounts, but we'll get onto that on another week's show. Like I said, there's a lot to get through. 2 new signs discussed already. Wrexham also signed George Thomason from Bolton at the start of the week, and we caught up with Trotter's Chat to talk about the new man, a little bit on Sam Dolby as well and their League One ambitions for next season. But here's everything you need to know about another new Wrexham signing. So Ryan, Wrexham have finally signed George Thomason. I think the deal has been on the radar of all fans for a week or so now. Were Bolton fans expecting him to leave this summer?
Initially, no. But we believe originally Huddersfield were looking at him. They rumoured to have offered $750,000 for him. So that's when we thought potentially was he maybe allowed to look for other clubs, maybe he fancied a move away. And then obviously the Wrexham rumours started to snowball, and then we assumed that he'd be on his way, especially we were looking for centre midfielders as well, and we still are. So you sort of put 2 and 2 together, and are we looking for a replacement for George? So if you would have told me this a couple of months ago, I wouldn't have believed it, to be honest, but here we are today.
I guess as well, the headline is Wrexham have signed Bolton's captain. I mean, is he a stereotypical captain, and what you'd expect from those attributes as someone who works hard, gets stuck in, and is a real leader of that side?
Yeah, so it was an interesting one. So Ricardo Santos was our main captain for a good 3 seasons, and we had a real poor performance at Wembley, but I won't revisit all that again. So they took the armband off Santos to allow him to sort of focus on his game, and it was given to George. George is a proper talker on the pitch. I've heard him in the pre-season games where you can hear all the players, and he is the one who's always talking. He's not afraid of a tackle. And he works his arse off, and that is one thing you can give him. So yes, obviously he's quite young still, still probably a bit wet behind the ears despite playing like a good 4 years in men's football, but definitely captain material if you want to sort of describe the ideal format for a captain.
I guess as well, like you said, a lot of changed out of Bolton. Santos has obviously come to the Championship as well. You've seen that he's come to Wales as well, as he's gone to Swansea, and we've signed Thomason off you. I guess maybe from a fan's point of view, what did you like about him, and what annoyed you about him? Was there anything?
So we've sort of watched him grow up as Bolton fans. We got him from non-league, and he was this scrawny little teenager. And what we did find was he was a little bit too weak, a little bit too easy to get off the ball, and over time he's bulked up, and he's really become a man under Ian Everett's tenure. And what we do like about him, like I say, is the work rate. He's scored a few good goals for us, not afraid to get stuck in, and technically he can be pretty decent. The issue we find with him is he can be a little bit empty-headed sometimes with his challenges and his decision-making. His disciplinary record is very poor for Bolton. I think he racked up 15 yellow cards or something last season, where a lot of people see that as like, great, it's someone who's willing to get stuck in, but when that disciplinary record sort of affects how many times he's playing, that's when it becomes an issue. I think it was the right time for him. I think there's a big sort of period of transition at the minute with Bolton, and the move did come at the right time because we sort of cleared out all the sort of Everett boys, and he was very much an Everett boy, very loyal to Ian Everett. So that's again a loyalty thing. He was. I don't think you could take that away from him, and I think Parky will look for a player like that. Obviously, we know Phil Parkinson very well, and he much more suits Phil Parkinson than he does Stephen Schumacher.
Yeah, like I said, I think when we talked before it came on, he ticks every box of a Parky player, really, of what we can expect. Him and James McLean, I'm sure, will have a competition to see who can get the most yellow cards next season as well. I think Thomason had 11 yellows in the league, which I think is as many as James McLean got by the end, and like I say, a few in the cup as well. Do you think he's Championship quality? I mean, it's hard for us to say. We watched you 3 times last season, but I think when Wrexham fans, maybe there's a bit of a divide because we were signing League One players in non-league, and if you sign League One players and you go up to the Championship, there's obviously going to be expectations there, but and exceptions. But yeah, do you think he's ready for this challenge? Do you think he's got the standard to start in the Championship right now?
So Bristol City went in for him about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and offered £1 million for him. So they clearly saw something in him, but he said he wanted to stay at Bolton, got the Iron Band, and obviously played a lot of games in League One. Personally, from the outside sort of looking, it seems a very good deal for Bolton. I think the money that we've got for him, I think it's a strange one. It is a strange one, and I don't know if he is ready or not. Obviously, there's no evidence of him doing so, but it all depends on the way Parky plays, how Thomason gets involved with the team. But to see him start in the Championship does seem unlikely for me at the moment.
Yeah, like you said, it's all about that development plan, how people fit in. I'm guessing when you signed him, you weren't expecting him to be a captain in 4 years' time on the flip side as well.
Not for once.
What sort of style were you using him in last season then? Because again, we've got this very particular formation for next season. Not quite sure if he'll be that left-sided central midfielder or playing one of the more advanced roles, given his tendency to go box to box. But how was he used at Bolton?
So the way Ian Everett played was very possession heavy. I don't really want to talk too much about how he was used under Schumacher because Schumacher inherited Everett's team and it was really difficult to sort of judge. But obviously they're very possession based, collecting the ball and bringing it forward. I think he was sort of asked to do a lot of stuff he isn't really comfortable with doing, where I think Phil Parkinson will let him play his natural game. I think Everett tried to make him too technical. But I think like he is a box-to-box player. He's about getting that ball back and dishing it straight back out again. Doesn't need to be holding onto the ball so much. I think Everett wanted him to be that guy who's almost like the enforcer, but his tackling isn't the best. So I wouldn't ask him to do that, but I think we needed that profile of player at the time. I think he is a better fit for the way Wrexham play. You wouldn't put him in, like, you look at a player like Josh Sheehan, who's more comfortable with the ball, that kind of player, more technical. That's not what George Thomason was, which is surprising. He probably suits the style of Schumacher more, really, so interesting one.
Yeah, to paraphrase Back to the Future, where we're going, we don't need the ball, mate. We'll be absolutely fine without it. Wanted to get as well, just because I know lots of fans will be following Bolton loosely, like I said, without trying to blow too much smoke up your arse. We were very excited to be playing at the Macron last season. That was bewildering that we got to that level and obviously gone a step further. What is the expectation for Bolton this season, given the way that last season transpired?
Has to be promotion, I think. I think we've got a new manager who's done it before. Obviously, you've got Plymouth Argyle up with a much smaller budget, much smaller fan base, and he's come in and he's really ripped up the rule book, shipped out and not the marquee players, and we've not lost a game so far in pre-season. We're beating teams arguably a lot better than us. So it's really exciting. It's really exciting stuff. I'm really glad not to be playing Wrexham, to be honest. I wish you would have taken Stockport with you as well, because we play them for our opening game of the season, and we gave them 6 points last year. But I really want to see us up there, and I like to believe that at the minute. But obviously, there's still a lot of transfer time to go yet. Obviously, again, filling the position of Thomason and a few others as well. But yeah. Let's say playoffs minimum. It's got to be playoffs minimum.
Well, we sent Paul Mullen to Wigan. You've got Sam Dolby instead. What are your initial impressions of Dolby? Because obviously Wrexham tried to hand him a new contract. He didn't want it, and yeah, how's he settled in at Bolton? Is he going to have a big role to play this season? Do you think?
We know Schumacher likes wingers and he likes a focal point. I think he very much is that focal point. Unfortunately, he got injured in training before he played his first game. So he's set to miss the start of the season. He's set to miss the first game against Stockport. So it's still a bit of an unknown entity. It does leave us with literally no strikers. So we're in a bit of a rush round trying to sort that out. So I'm reserving my judgment, but his record at Dundee was brilliant. And I don't like to judge a player until I've seen him. You can't. Stats can only tell you some of the story, can't they? So we will see.
And we'll see the same with George Thomason as well. Ryan, as always, thank you very much for joining us.
Anytime.
Nathan Salt and Rich Fay.
Well, Nath, sounds like a very typical Parky player, someone who's going to work hard. Maybe seems a little bit strange that we went from now that we've also got O'Brien. I didn't really see us getting both in that sense, but the competition for places is crazy now for the new season, because even if you have Thomason, Windass and O'Brien as your midfield, well, where's Cannon? Where's Rathbone? Where's Matty James?
I would say, Rich, we now have, I think if you include Jake Bickerstaff, we have 30 registered senior players. You can register 25 at the end of the month. Now, obviously, Lewis O'Brien will be registered. Josh Windass will be registered. George Thomason will be registered. Let's just hone in on the midfield. Can you guarantee me now that any of these are going to be in the registration? Gorgeous George. Andy Cannon.
Not when he's injured.
George Dobson. Matty James. Is Matty James a guarantee, do you think? He feels close.
So he's had a very key role in pre-season, and I think Parky loves him. And I'd also say on Matty James, I do think that he plays a role that no one else in the team does, as that proper deep-lying anchor.
Ollie Rathbone surely gets registered. Yeah. Surely. Who else in there? Elliot Lee. You'd think so, wouldn't you? But do you?
This is, I think, the better question, which we'll maybe try and gobble our way through now, is you've said that we've got 30 players at the moment to the club. If we want to add anyone else, that's obviously taking it up even more. So as things stand, 5 of those players need to be axed for the new season. So you're saying Bickerstaff's been on
Bickerstaff's
trial,
gone.
Hasn't it?
Bickerstaff's gone. So 4 more.
Gone. So you've got 4 more players to guarantee to get rid of for the current squad to function. I would say Gorgeous George, Jacob Mendy,
yeah,
Mo Farl,
yeah,
and then who else? I mean, that's.
But we've brought in Thomason, who did in that chat just there did sound like a funny one, because it's like Bolton are buzzing to get 1.2 million, which never feels like a great sign. But typical Parky player will work his nads off, work his plums off, I guess, and will just be the type of midfielder that's. In fairness, some Bolton fans did come and say that he is a championship player. He will function better in a better team that caters to his needs, which it sounds like Parkinson will. So you signed Thomason, you've signed Windass, you've signed O'Brien. For me, that's 3 midfielders. I know Windass is a little bit more all over the place. McLean can cover in midfield as well. obviously he's mainly covering at left wing back. I don't know if you can stick with loads and loads of midfielders. I don't know, in a system where if there's three of them, yes, you're going to have injuries along the way. Harry Ashfield, we've had that debate. Do you keep him purely as that he's a freebie and he could,
Does he
plug in
actually
gaps?
play at all now? Look, it feels like we've taken the squad up a whole new level since last week when we were saying Harry Ashfield should have a role next season.
He probably goes out, but I'm just saying that if you in terms of he's just free, isn't he? So it's like we can bolster our midfield with just someone who doesn't count against the cap. I meant more so than he's probably not going to play. The one I'm a bit worried. I'm a bit worried about Andy Cannon. I love Andy Cannon, and I do think on his day he's a brilliant footballer. He is a brilliant footballer. Let's not kid ourselves because we've gone up the ranks, and anyone who goes is in no way a bad footballer. But I'm a bit edgy now about Andy Cannon making the 25-man squad because look, I still think there's more business to be done as well. So it's scaring me even more. Yeah,
I agree with you on that one. And again, I think you just can't take any risks with a selection next season because they're so sacred. And if Andy Cannon's coming back from such a serious injury as he's had, again, the sentimentality would be, it'd be great to keep him around and have him. And maybe Andy Cannon's that player who doesn't get registered for the league matches and we just keep him around till January and then revisit it then. I think that might be the best solution for everyone. But you just can't. I just don't think you can take the risk on him being one of those starters. Like you're saying, maybe if Wrexham get two more players in, I know you've been working on the graphic. It might be worth you putting this on screen now when it's on YouTube so people can see what the squad looks like right now of the 30 men. So I think we're hypothetically saying there's going to be 7 to go, aren't we, really? We expect 2 more sign-ins. That would take us to 32, so 7 would have to go. So I think we're in agreement. You would get rid of Bickerstaff.
Yeah.
Get rid of Gorgeous George, Jacob Mendy, maybe Andy Cannon, and then there's still 3 more. Mo
Farr's got to go on loan, and I think Revan's, prime candidate also, I would think.
What do you do about someone like Tom O'Connor?
I still think we're going to sign a defender, and then do you need O'Connor, Scar, O'Connell, plus the new centre-back? I don't know. Let's take a break. I was going to say, let's take a break and go on to a new player because we're going to be sort of frantically trying to justify each of these selections and omissions for hours and hours and hours. Right, Rich, lastly then, because we know someone else who's definitely going to be registered, Liberato Cacace, who I've said his name wrong on pretty much every single video. Wrexham have signed a player from Serie A. So we've signed a player from the Premier League in Lewis O'Brien. We've signed a player from Serie A as well, which is nuts. Whether you want to point to him getting relegated in that Empoli team or not, that is mad. Yeah. And I'm probably... I don't know. I'm most intrigued to see him play because I have no expectation on Cacace because I genuinely do not know what we're getting. Complete unknown quantity. I've never seen him play. I've seen Windass play. We've all seen some of those long-range screamers that he scored. O'Brien, I've seen a couple of times when he's played for Forest. Again, at Swansea as well, a really good player. Thomason, I don't know, really. Again, I think he might not be the nailed-on starter, but will be a depth piece, maybe ahead of someone like a George Dobson in the pecking order. But Cacace, I mean, first impression was like, what on earth have we just pulled off here?
Yeah. Thing that's slightly worried me with Cacace is that everyone was saying, this guy's a beast on Football Manager and all that. And it's like, we also had Cherno Samba on loan from Plymouth. And Cherno Samba is like the archetypal Championship manager wonder kid. So that's not good enough for me. But I think with Cacace, I know this is very vague and very obvious. He almost feels like he's going to be our best signing of the summer or the worst. And it's not going to be anywhere in between for me. It's like that he comes with so much hype, so much unknown about him. Looked like he had serious interest from a lot of other clubs. He looks like a really good get. And I just can't wait to see. Because like you said, Wrexham signing a player from Empoli that is not a thing that happened. I still can't come to terms with this being reality. I was looking at the Championship fixtures earlier in the day. I was like, we're playing all of these teams. Like, I actually can't believe it. So Cacace, I'm not going to pretend I know anything about him. I ain't got a clue. Thankfully, though, Nath, you spoke to someone who had a better idea than both of us.
Yes, Giacamo Cobianchi, who people will know from he does the edits, Rich, you know, like player edits. They're always absolutely brilliant, and I know players also love them, and you will have seen them. I think I'll even put a link to one in the description. I'm sure I said that in the chat with him anyway. But he is an Italian-based Wrexham fan. I think he's trying to mobilize various Italian fans over there to come together and be something of a unit, a group, a club. And he is based in Italy, watches all the Italian games, watched plenty of Empoli last season. And here is his lowdown on what we can expect from Cacace. Right, so a week of signings, the first of which was Wrexham signing a player from Serie A, which doesn't actually sound as normal. And also, I've said his name wrong so often now that I've brought on an actual Italian who's going to tell us how to say it. But Liberato Cacace has joined from Empoli, who were in Serie A last season. Giacomo, who people may know because he does brilliant work with video film edits, which I know the players love, and you will have seen them. If not, I'll link one of my favorite ones in the description. Giacomo, firstly, thanks for coming on at short notice. Secondly, what type of player are Wrexham getting in Liberato Cacace?
Hi, Nathan. Thank you for inviting me. Well, I think it's a good signing. He was useful for Empoli. He played in a lot of positions, mainly as a winger, wing back on the left, but also played as a left central midfielder when they played a three-man midfield. And also in some match, he played as a midfielder behind the forward when they had to play an extremely defensive lineup. So they needed a more defensive, advanced midfielder. And I think he was a starter for Empoli in almost every match last year. Undoubtedly one of their best players.
We should say you're an AC Milan fan, and I should quantify that signing a player from Serie A, you know, there are still levels to that league, right? People might think Inter Milan, AC Milan, Napoli. No, we're not quite getting a sort of 40, 50 million pound player. We are getting a player at the other end. Empoli did end up relegated. But what do you think Cacace's biggest strengths are? Because I sort of see him, well, I think most of us see him going into that left wing back spot. But like you say, there's obviously the potential that he could play further forward. He could play as a more advanced midfielder. Let's just say he plays at left wing back. Is he more dangerous going forward, or is he a better defender, do you think?
You know, given we're talking about of a relegated side, as you said, I think he's very versatile because he covered so many positions, which on one side, this was good because it boosted his growth in Italy. But from the other side, it didn't give him the time to master one of these positions. So I think it's good. He can cover many positions and different approaches, but it will depend on Parky if he wants to keep a player who's pretty good at doing various things, or if he wants him to master one precise position and maybe lose some of his versatility.
Yeah, because I think from people I've listened to and read up on him, you know, going forward, he will be a threat. You know, that is what you want: pace, power. He will offer that. I think that the stereotype with Italian football is that defending is the art of the Italians, right? Like everyone says that in Italy they can do many things. Defending is one of them. To be a starting player in Serie A, how much better do you think he is in terms of what he's coming into? As in, where do you think sort of playing for Empoli ranks compared to this squad he's coming in? Do you think he goes in as one of the best players technically, or do you think there'll be good competition for places there?
You know, Serie A is a very good league to developing defenders. Yeah, he came from another type of football, and he was able to get into a lineup, the starting lineup of Empoli. I think maybe we have to see how Parky wants him to fit in the lineup. Given that we are going to keep that 3 back line and 5 line midfield on the left flank, I think he can be a little different from James McLean because he's less physical, but maybe he can be sort of a threat on the attack. So maybe he can lack a little from the physicality point of view. And in the championship, we know this is very important. So let's see how Parky managed to fit him also with his teammates. Maybe you have to give him the space to go up, but put in someone who can cover for him.
It's quite interesting. I mean, it must have been amazing for you to see a player from Serie A join Wrexham, because I say that to say that, you know, you are not a new fan. Nothing wrong with anybody who's a new fan through the documentary, but that is not your story. So I thought maybe you could give us a quick recap. I say recap. You've not been on the podcast before. A quick version of how you came to following Wrexham.
Yeah, it's incredible for me to see Wrexham buying a player from my domestic league. And I started following Wrexham in 2014. I can say randomly because I was in the university speaking with my friend, and it was the day after that Manchester United was knocked out from Champions League by Bayern Munich, and it was the first Manchester United after Sir Alex Ferguson. And we were talking about Sir Alex Ferguson, and someone mentioned Darren Ferguson. I went looking for his Wikipedia page, and I found out he played for Wrexham, and Wrexham was the only team I didn't know in that list. So I was curious to know something more about, and now we're here.
And now we're here, and like I say, you've done brilliant work editing clips for players and great montages that anyone on social media will have seen. But I guess lastly, you know, we're really excited to see what Cacace has in store for us. You know, he is going to get down to work with the youth team. He has been down to work with the youth team this week while the other players adapt from the jet lag. How excited are you for the new season, and maybe how do you see things panning out in the early weeks for Wrexham?
I'm very excited. Something incredible, and I never thought it would be so immediate to be Wrexham in the championship, you know, when I started, and when Ryan and Rob came in, I didn't know it was going to be that fast. I think we all still get to realize, maybe in the first game of the season, we will realize that we are playing the championship. So let's see how these signing transfer window goes on, and then we will start and see what we can do, because we have seen in these years, predictions are useless with Wrexham.
So there you go, Rich. Giacomo giving us a little bit of insight there. I mean, seems exciting. You know, he was impressed with him whenever he played, raised his level in big games, and you know, clearly there's. I thought what was interesting that he said was that the biggest area of concern maybe for Cacace is just that physicality. Like, he'll be better going forward than McLean in terms of his end product, but because he'll be so far forward and so attacking, physicality in terms of the defending, will someone be able to go across and cover for him? And so I think I came away from that chat thinking maybe he's not the most nailed on week one starter that we've got out of the group. I think O'Brien will go into the Southampton midfield, and I think Windass will go into the team straight away. But I wonder, McLean's a very, very fit individual. He's had the armband on. He is listed as the club captain. Those are always a little bit trickier to shift.
Yeah, I think McLean starts the season, to be honest. I also think that a lot of managers who have this sort of wing-back system, they like to have one who's more defensive than the other one. I know it makes you a bit asymmetric, but they don't want to have two wingers basically playing that wide because it just leaves you too exposed, and it just doesn't work that way. I know we're going to have a lot more sort of energy in midfield this season coming up. You've got people who got put in the hard yard, so maybe they can cover when Cacace attacks. But the other element, Nath, is, which is unusual for us to say as Wrexham fans because it's not something to take into consideration, but you're signing a player from overseas who's not used to English football at all. So he's not only got to adapt to a new club, he's got to adapt to the new culture and a new style of football, where all the other signings, they should be easier to adapt to North Wales life and life in the EFL. So I think for me, Cacace, like you said, I think he's the one who doesn't start straight away, maybe gets eased in, and I think James McLean starts for Wrexham in the first few games anyway, and then we reevaluate from there.
Right, we're getting to the end of the podcast, Rich, but we promised we would give our Wrexham 11, how we think Wrexham will look in the Championship. Now, this isn't necessarily week one, but just over the course of the season, what do we think will be the sort of the common team? You'll see it on screen now. If you're Rich is going to go first with his team, you'll see it on screen otherwise. But if you're listening, Rich will talk you through his 11.
Yeah, I mean, there's some positions that are no surprise. Okonkwo in goal for me, even with Danny Ward signing, I think Okonkwo is still the guy. We have an understanding he will be the number one. In defence, it's got to be Super Maxi Cleworth and Lewis Brunt, alongside what I want is a new ball-playing centre-back, an upgrade on O'Connell and someone who's just a bit more mobile than Dan Scar in the heart of the Wrexham defence. In midfield, I see Longman and Cacace eventually at wing backs. Like I said, you can maybe put Longman and McLean in for the sake of this graphic, just so there's a bit more debate. And in midfield for me, love him or loathe him, Matty James is the holding midfielder because I think he is just very unique in what he offers the team right now. Ollie Rathbone is Ollie Rathbone, and then you've got O'Brien as well in the midfield three. And up top, you've got Super Sammy Smith accompanied just off him with Josh Windass.
I like it. I that is a much better team than we had when we finished in League One, if I'm being honest. And it might be a little bit unfair to some of those players in that League One team, but that is packed full of goals. Sam Smith, we like a lot.
Only 4 new signings, my team.
Okay, well, I'm going to shake things up a little bit more. I'm obviously going to Okonkwo in goal. And similarly, I'm going to go for the same back three as you. I'm going to have Max on the right, a new, sparkling, new, shiny centre-back to sit in between. I'm going to go Lewis Brunt on the left side. And my wing-backs are going to be the same as yours, Cacace and Longman. So that's where we agree. I'm actually going to go for a midfield of...
Luke Young.
No, I'm going to go for Lewis O'Brien, George Thomason, and Josh Windass. I'm going to go for Josh Windass in the midfield. I actually think maybe Thomason might end up even sitting in like the base of the midfield. I'm unsure yet. That might be wrong. I've seen mixed opinions of like where he will best play, but I think that trio could end up being the trio, with Matty James coming on maybe to help us see out games, just because he's such a midfield metronome, and Ollie Rathbone giving you some fresh legs in there when required. And I hope Andy Cannon, although even with a 9-man bench, I don't know. I mean, I also think Elliot Lee, if he's still around, might be an option just to come on late in games, a bit like maybe Mullin and Palmer in League One. Up top, I'm going Sam Smith and a sparkly new club record signing striker. That is the team, and I'm talking like a big name. I think that they will go for, make a proper splash to go alongside Sam Smith, and that is my team for Wrexham's first season back in the Championship. So let us know, what do you think? Do we need more gaps? Do we need more spots open? Lots of chatter about Kiefer Moore, lots of chatter about a lot of players right now. Centre back is a one.
Right? Could you mean a 1.96 meter one?
I think, I don't know. I think they might make a really like a mega splash. Just because some of the names that are getting thrown about now, some of them, like you say, are just using Wrexham, but which we both know we're not at liberty to share all the names, but we know that some of them are European football level, outrageous, yeah. And
I would just say then, Dave, in your opinion, if you are Parky or the transfer board and you're going to buy this sparkly club record signing striker, what mold of striker is that? Like, is it a big target man? Is it someone who's really mobile and quick? What is it? What type of player are you looking for? Briefly,
I would say speed would be high on my priority list, and just a proven track record of top flight goals in whatever country that is. Just like top flight Champions League, Europa League. If that's where they think they're shopping abroad, I would just go just someone who you look at their track record for recent seasons and it's like 20, 25, 18, 22. Goal returns just consistently high. And who knows? Look, Josh Sargent turned down his offer from Wolfsburg, didn't he? I don't think that one will happen, had Giroud said before. But I honestly think that they'll go big on a striker. And who knows? It might even be Kiefer Moore and this sparkly new striker that I think. A lot is changing. Honestly, one of the entourages of one of the players who's joined, the 6 players so far, said to me when they spoke to Parkinson and Parkin about their ideal transfer window, they couldn't grab the pen and sign fast enough. They were like, "This is unbelievable. I want in on this." And we've had that in the National League. We had that in League 2. We've had that in League 1. But now we're swimming with the big boys, and we are flexing our muscle.
we are one of the big boys ourselves. Wrexham, we're not going anywhere, neither are we on Rob, Ryan, Red. As always, thank you very much to all of you who get in contact with the show. We do read all of your correspondence. Please keep it coming. Rob, Ryan, Red on all the socials. Thank you very much to Wrexham-based band Hypnotic for the music, the stings, and to Red 10 People Development for their continued support of the podcast as well. Most of all, though, thank you to you, wherever you are in the world, for listening. Take care, and we will see you next time.
The Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Bay.